Dansukakyo, Lindsay Knight here. I also go by the name Eekwol, and I am a hip hop artist coming from Treaty 6 territory, which is Saskatoon. Originally from Muscadet First Nation, but I've lived in Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Prince Albert. Most of my life I've spent in the cities, so I call myself an urban Indigenous woman, and that would explain my history and what I do today, which is rap. So I'm a hip hop artist. I rap for a living. Uh, it sounds silly. I've been doing that for about 25 years, and I'm still doing it. I never thought I would be. I go by the name Eekwol, and that's Eekwol. And funny story behind that, when I was a teenager, started getting into hip hop, and one of the things that's really kind of cool about hip hop is we have monikers, or sort of aliases, so nobody knows our real name. And so my name was Low Key, because I was kind of like that quiet kid that kind of like kept watch over everything, and so that was sort of like my nickname. So somebody decided, hey, that's a cool name. I want to have that name too. And they started writing their name. Like in hip hop, we do something that you should never do, which is graffiti. But, you know, when I was a kid, I didn't really listen to rules sometimes. So I used to write Low Key all over illegally. And somebody else started doing that too. And I thought, you know, I could try to tell everybody, no, it's me. I'm the real Low Key. Or I could just come up with something else. So another thing I got when I was a teenager was a tattoo. And that tattoo, of course, said Low Key. And it's right on my arm. I'm not wearing a t-shirt, so you can't see it, but it's right there. And so I was looking in the mirror one day. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I have this tattoo that says Low Key, and now these other kids are starting to call themselves Low Key and steal my name. So I was looking in the mirror thinking, what do I do? And then I looked in the mirror and it said Eekwol. And I was like, hey, I'm a girl that does hip hop, and I'm always struggling against this idea of being a girl in hip hop. All I wanted was to be treated equal for being a rapper. And I thought, boom, perfect. I'm going to call myself Eekwol. So it was like Low Key backwards, flipped around. And that's, plus, you know, I couldn't really afford getting a tattoo removed. So that's the name that stuck. And to this day, I still have it on my arm. And it's Eekwol, and it just stuck since then. So that's the first story. I got into hip hop as a way of trying to understand my identity. I grew up as a Nehiyaw person. My dad is Nehiyaw, which is Cree, and my mom is Russian, and she comes from the Kenora area we call in Saskatchewan the Pierogi Belt. So, I was familiar with both sides of my heritage, but much more with my Cree side. We grew up spending most of our time on the res and with my Cree family. And so I was really fortunate to be raised in that and to understand a lot of our traditions and our culture. And to this day, we still have ceremonial grounds, and my dad still runs a sweat, holds fasts, and we still do all of that. So I'm really, really grateful for that. When I was younger, though, I wasn't as disciplined as I am, and I was searching for identity. And when I discovered hip hop, a lot of us as young people, as young Indigenous urban people, discovered hip hop as a way of being able to tell a story over a beat in a cool way, making it rhyme. So I thought, this is what I want to do, because I've always been a storyteller. Ever since I was a little kid, I could weave a tale, and I love to write stories, and I love to write poetry, and I love to sing songs. So much that I have an older sister, and she would always tell me, quit singing, it's so annoying. But I just kept singing, and look where I am today. So I just kept doing it, and when I discovered hip hop, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and so I did. And so I learned from a lot of the rappers that were popular back in the 90s and the early 2000s, and I studied how they did it. And I'll admit, I can call it sort of like a training time, because I would copy them, I would imitate them, because I didn't have anyone else to look up to that was rapping. that was Indigenous, or that was from our Treaty 6 territory that was rapping. We were all pretty new at it. So I learned from them. And then when I got into my 20s, that's when I realized that if I really wanted to get somewhere with rap, I'd have to come with something original, something that didn't sound like anyone else. Because we all know if you listen to Playboy Cardi or one of these new rappers out right now, and then you hear somebody that sounds like them, which song are you gonna listen to? Probably the original artist. So I thought, well, I probably shouldn't be sounding like Eminem or Tupac or Biggie Smalls or any of these rappers. I should sound like Eekwol. So I started to learn and focus on developing my own style, which is who I am, where I'm from. I'm an Indigenous woman, and I identify as being a woman and being Nehiyaw. So I have to make sure that my style sounds like that. And so I started to become aware of colonization. I started to rap about revolutionary stuff. And it's funny because I learned about residential schools in my first year of university, and I hadn't known anything about it. And when I went home and asked my family, my dad said, yeah, I went to day school. Yeah, your grandparents went to residential school. We never talked about it. It was never talked about. But I knew the effects of it. I knew the intergenerational effects of it. I saw it. I experienced it. And so putting a name to the face, I guess, or however you say that, really opened my eyes, and it opened my awareness. And so my creativity started to be all about that, all about trying to understand that side of my identity. I always thought I was just being Indigenous meant sort of being lesser or being a genetically inferior. And as a kid in school, I would try to hide it. And having fair skin, I could hide it a lot of times. But then my dad would show up to pick me up, and then my cover would be blown. So the reason why I felt like that is because I did not know about colonization. I did not know what our people went through, the struggles, the hardships, just the pure trauma and devastation. So I spent that time in my 20s making music about that, trying to address that, trying to talk about that, trying to be a voice for those that maybe didn't have a voice. And so that was my next stage of my musical journey. And then I became a mom. And that was like, I was sort of like this, and it just went flip. And becoming a parent means that everything in your world is no longer about you. It's about that little being that exists. And from that moment, becoming a mom, I realized now I have to make sure that I'm coming from a place that makes sure that this baby, this generation is aware of this history, but also compassionate, and also feeling good about themselves, and also coming from a place of kindness and compassion. And I can no longer be as angry as I used to be, because I have this little person, this little human, this little spirit that I have to take care of and teach them in a good way. So that became the next step of my journey. And I'll admit, parenthood, just getting into it, and it was a shock to the system. It was really hard, and I struggled. And when I feel like I'm struggling, I write music, and that's the first thing I do. So what I want to quickly do is maybe share the song that I wrote for my son. His name is Kisik, and when he was born, I started to write for him. And I realized that every piece that I write now has to be something that I imagine him listening to in the future and being okay with it. So I can't write, I can't throw a bunch of curse words in there anymore. I can't, rap about partying and clubs and that. Not that I really did, but now I have to always think about these kids as they're older. I have a daughter now, but I'll get into that in a second. So this is Kisik's song, and I'm going to share it with you because it was the time in my life when I became a mom and started writing for my kids. Niko sis, napisum, light up the sky, heart beat like a drum. Grab hold of the world, my son. You are the one. Nikosis, nabisum. Light up the sky, heart beat like a drum. Grab hold of the world, my son. You are the one. And no, I never thought of love like this. Right down to my very last cell it exists. Call it what you want, like maternal instinct. I'm based on intuition, a new way to think. Everything I am, I give to you. Everything I have, I'll share with you. There's a lot of things you're not gonna learn about in school, so I'll be there to protect you from it all if that's cool. Had your back since you sat in my womb, and I'll keep that up till my name's on a tomb. But don't get me wrong, I won't make your life easy. I'll help with your strength, cause you'll need it. Believe me, they're out there everywhere. Haters and the game players. Keep your eyes open and your mind full of good prayers. And that's another thing I won't tell you to believe. Just know when you listen to the wind in the trees, or the birds in the breeze. Be proud, Nikosis. Let your story unfold. Your ancestors' footprints on this land are so old. And when you grow up, you're going to be something important. But either way, you can live with mom and dad until you're 40. You're such a mama's boy, all quick with the charm. I was so hooked I had to get you tatted on my arm. And even though your greatness outweighs the rest, don't act better than your own or you'll end up with less. Be critical, original, a caring individual. Focus on the truth. Don't fall into a pigeonhole. Be strong, be aware, be resilient. My son, you're my sunshine, that light so brilliant. Be strong, be aware, be resilient. My son, you're my sunshine, that light so brilliant. Nikosis, nabisum. Light up the sky, heart beat like a drum. Grab hold of the world, my son. You are the one. Nikosis, nabisum. Light up the sky, heart beat like a drum. Grab hold of the world, my son. You are the one. Thank you. So when I wrote that for him, he was a little baby and he used to listen, and my kids have been so immersed in my rap life that I'd practice holding him and he would literally fall asleep listening to it. And I thought, oh, that's so cute. And now when he hears that song, now he's 12. That was 12 years ago when I wrote that. And he's like, oh my God, don't do that song, Mom. Do not do that song, please. So I'm getting my little taste of this whole teenage trend coming in, and I'm ready for it, but it's kind of funny. And so he's doing good. He's got good teachings from both of his parents, and he has all his grandparents with him, and we're all working really hard to ensure that he knows who he is as a Nehiyaw young man. And so I had my daughter a few years later. And Kese is her name. And when I had my daughter, that was a whole different part of this journey in my music, because I was terrified. I had a son and I thought, okay, this guy, he's going to be okay. Being a man in society has its challenges, but for the most part, being a woman, there's a lot more challenge that comes with that. And being an Indigenous woman, there's even more that comes with that. So I was holding this baby girl in my arms, and I was like, oh, I'm terrified. How am I going to raise this little one to be, safe, to feel proud of who she is, to be brave, to be strong. And so I wrote a song for her too, and I won't perform that song for you, but it's called Iskwewak Iskateo Tapwe Win, which means woman, fire, and truth. And you can Google it, it's on YouTube, there's a video for it. And that's her song, and she's 8 now, and she still likes it, so we'll see how long she's, until she's completely embarrassed of Mummy as a rapper. So that's sort of how the journey went, and now I'm full on in mom mode, but also still fortunate enough to get a lot of gigs with music. And it's been a weird time, of course, we all know. But we have a lot of online stuff and Zoom and everything's happening. So I'm still able to do my creative process. And I'm really grateful for that, because to me, that's my ceremony and that's how I function. And so I always tell kids, my own kids, and anytime I'm in schools or with groups, I tell them, don't ever forget your creativity. That is the part of you that a lot of times we suppress in school, and as we become adults, we forget to dance, we forget to sing, we forget to just freestyle, freestyle life, paint, write poetry, just challenge yourself to just be creative, because we all have it. We all have it right here. So whenever you're feeling, down or frustrated or whatever, just grab a piece of paper, just start free writing, rip it up, throw it away. There's something about it that's really healing. So that's worked for me. And that's how I tell my stories. And so I really want to thank you, Hai Nanaskamun, for having me here today and for allowing me to share my story about how I became a hip hop artist and how I still am one today. Hai.